Now let's talk about how does this work with a real person? How do you actually use this assessment or a motivational assessment and help them to become more resilient? So first of all, I'll talk a little bit about the general process that we use for this. So the first step is really once they have received their report, you've gone over the results with them, they start to develop more self-awareness, right? And so part of that self-awareness is helping them to recognize sensitivities and assumptions that they may have because they're so motivated for winning, as Maria said. An assumption that they might have is that everything's a competition. People are always trying to win against me, and so one of the things is, first of all, just even making those assumptions and sensitivities conscious to them. And again, the value in using an assessment and a normed assessment like the IDI is that you really get a sense of how do I compare to other people? I might know I'm competitive, but when I see myself as a 99 on it, it's like, wow, I'm more competitive than all the other people who took this assessment. That's pretty interesting. So what assumptions am I making? And what sensitivities do I have? The next step is to start to challenge some of those reactions and beliefs. Like, is this really true? Is everybody really trying to challenge me here? Is everything really a competition? And then to start to connect some of those beliefs and actually to zoom out and think about what are my bigger goals and values? What am I trying to achieve here overall? And are these reactions or sensitivities or assumptions, are they helping me or are they hurting me? Are they getting in my way? Maybe they're helping me sometimes, but other times they might be getting in my way for what I'm actually trying to achieve in life. And then based upon that exploration, to start to take some action. The times when things are hurting me, what could I do differently? Is there a way for me to stop myself from making some assumptions? Is there a way for me to recognize it and do something a little bit different? So that's the general process. So let's take a look at a real person. So we're going to meet Sally, and Sally is an executive director in fundraising at a large American health research foundation. Her name isn't really Sally. She is a real person, though, but we obviously want to protect the innocent here. But so the stuff that I'm going to talk about is real. So when I first met Sally, she was feeling like she was stagnating in her role. So she had been working at that organization for about 7 years. She came in, was really pumped up at first, but at this point she's feeling like, man, I should have moved up. I should be doing more. I'm just feeling like I'm stagnating. She also was really, really overwhelmed with too many tasks and managing up and down, which we'll talk about. But yeah, she was working nights, she was working weekends and just feeling extremely overwhelmed. And she was at the point, when I got her, where she was like, I just need a new job. I just need to go someplace else. I'm not seeing much of a career path here where I am, but I don't know where to go. Her organization, she wanted to go to another place that was as prestigious as the one that she was at, but there are not a lot of openings there. It's not easy to get in. She was just really didn't know what to do. Now, related to Sally's boss, her boss was extremely dynamic, creative, came up with great ideas, but also quite demanding. So a lot of Sally's time was spent managing her boss. Her boss relied on Sally for a lot of things. She gave an example where, Sally was working at home one day and she decided to take her lunch break during her lunch break to take a run. And she had her Apple Watch on. And, as soon as she took off, she noticed there was a text or an email coming in from her boss. And she was like, oh, I'm just going to go run. And she kept running. And, by the time she got back, she saw that there was an email, texts, and phone calls from her boss. And she finally, got in touch with her and she's like, what's going on? And the boss was basically wanted her to review an email, to proofread an email before she sent it out. So the boss was like, not really respecting her time, her lunch break. And they had gotten into this pattern where Sally would jump, she would just be there when the boss needed her. The boss also, again, is really creative, has lots of ideas, dynamic and everything, but Sally's the one who has to be sort of the reality check and make it happen. And sometimes that can be really challenging to do that, to sort of be in the background all the time. Sally loved her boss, though. She really respected her and loved her. In fact, she described it as, there's no one I'd rather be in the foxhole with, which gives you a sense of her state of mind if she's describing her job as a foxhole. But she's feeling, overlooked and overworked by her boss. Now, Sally's team was another situation. They were, underperforming. They were needy. They wanted a lot of her time. They wanted to talk things over with her and everything. And she was just sort of overwhelmed also dealing with them. She was reluctant to give them constructive feedback. They had had some openings on the team, and that was another reason why she was overworked, because she was kind of covering for those openings. And the morale was kind of low, and she was worried that if she gave them constructive feedback, that they were maybe going to leave. And then the other thing that they were doing that was really frustrating was that at times, if they went to her and they didn't like the answer they got, they would go to the boss. So she described a time when, one of her employees came to her with a proposal. She was like, well, it's not going to work because this, that, and the other. And then the guy went to her boss, and the boss was like, yeah, sure. That sounds great. And Sally was left feeling very frustrated, and then having to either clean up the mess after it didn't succeed or figure out a way to make it work. And so they were not, even though some of them wanted her advice and wanted a lot of her time, others were not really seeing her as, perceiving her as the leader. In fact, one person actually, when he gave his resignation, gave it to the boss rather than Sally herself, even though he directly reported to her. So again, a lot of stuff's going on for Sally, right? And she's frustrated. And again, she's at the point of kind of no return. So, I asked her, okay, what do you want to change? Specifically, she wanted to feel less busy and overwhelmed. She wanted more of a prominent position, or at least more visibility in her position. She described it as feeling like she was a cog in the wheel, just getting things done, and that people liked her in that position because she got it done. But she really was like, hey, I'm not expressing my creativity. I'm not able to be visible and, do more of the interesting stuff. So she wanted that to be different. With her boss, she really wanted the boss to respect her boundaries and her time, and also to respect her leadership. So if people, circumvent her, she wanted the boss to push back and say, no, 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 you report to Sally, you got to talk with her about it. And then also she wanted her boss to pull her in for the good stuff. So not only the creative thinking about projects, but also the more visible aspects of executing them, where she could go to the presentations and get some of the credit for it. She was feeling just sort of very left out. She was the workaholic behind everything, and not the one reaping the rewards. And then from her team, she wanted them to perform better and not need so much from her. And then also to treat her like a team leader and not constantly go around her to her supervisor. All right. So, she was in a tough position, and she was feeling more and more stressed and more, overworked. And she, what we wanted to do was, okay, this is a tough situation. Is there anything that you're doing that might be contributing to this situation? And so we wanted to explore some of her maybe unhelpful assumptions, and how she was filling in the blanks, and how she was working, and how that might be contributing to some of her negative feelings that she was having. So we decided to give her the IDI, and we went through her results. Here are two specific results that I'll pull out right now. So the first thing is she had a really, really, really high score on gaining stature. You can see it's a 99%. That means she gets more energy than anybody else, almost anybody else who took this assessment on gaining stature, which people who are high in gaining stature get a lot of energy from getting recognition, being visible, getting credit for work that they do. So people who are high in gaining stature love to feel respected and included in prestigious groups and events, what they consider valued groups and events. They also enjoy feeling singled out for special recognition. And because of that, they often will develop interpersonal skills to gain others' attention and recognition. Now, all of that is great, right? Like, high gaining stature can be really great because it puts you in a position to make yourself visible. Often people will try for promotions or awards or things, and, set themselves up for success. But the other side of the coin for gaining stature is that it makes people very, very conscious of what other people think about them. And they often will feel the weight of others' expectations. And they often don't want to disappoint and are approval seeking. Now, combined with that, Sally also had a really high score on excelling, which is getting energy from pushing yourself toward higher and higher goals. So they love working towards something. People high on excelling also, feel a sense of accomplishment from doing their best no matter what. So really high expectations, doesn't matter what's going on. You always got to push yourself no matter what else is going on in your life. Also, they had set really high aspirations and constantly challenge themselves to do better, but sometimes their aspirations are too high. They're unattainable. They're not realistic. And they often feel as if they're not living up to their potential. So how did these two scores in particular contribute to, Sally's career journey? So when she first started her job, she was pumped that she had started at this prestigious organization, and she also moved up very quickly early on. It felt great. She was earning raves from her boss for effectively executing their plans. She was also getting praise from other high-level leaders for how she was managing her boss and keeping things running and going, right? So early on, her gaining stature needs were being met, her excelling was being met, and it felt great. However, after several years of that, it started to wear thin. She was working like crazy and keeping up the pace was really hard. And then, she was just expected to make things run. So she wasn't getting as much of the praise or attention as she had been early on. And then also not really knowing what her career path was or if there was any opportunity for growth there was also weighing on her quite a bit. And now she's exhausted and she wants to push back, but she's worried that she's going to let down the higher ups. She also doesn't want to lose her reputation as someone who can make things happen. And she knows she should give constructive feedback, but worries that if she loses any staff, it would make her look like she has a failing team. So you can see how what helped her success in the beginning is actually now starting to contribute to some of her issues. So what did we do with her? We wanted to start on this process. So the first thing we did was to sort of recognize or try to recognize what are some of the assumptions that she has. And the first one was, I can't disappoint my boss or other high-level executives, right? If I push back, it's going to be really uncomfortable. I don't like it. It scares me. It makes me nervous. I have to stay on their good side, and I have to put their expectations ahead of my needs. Another assumption that she had was, I just need to keep working at this pace. I'm tough. I can handle it. I will disappoint them if I slow down. Also around delegation to her team, I'm selfish if I delegate to them. I can just handle, I'll just do it myself. My value lies in being the go-to person, so I need to be available. And another assumption that she had was giving critical feedback to my team isn't fair. It was actually time for their evaluations, their yearly evaluations, performance reviews. And I was like, okay, great. This is a good time to practice giving constructive feedback. And she was like, well, I haven't done that already, and it's not fair to them. I don't want to surprise them and I don't want to put it in writing. And I was like, okay, all right, but it needs to start at some point. So again, she had that expectation. I should have been doing that already. I should have made that happen. And that sort of provided a lot of extra guilt and weight and pressure on herself. So, all right, so we looked at each of these assumptions and ran through this process. So first of all, that first one, I can't disappoint my boss or other high-level executives. So we looked at that and said, well, is it actually true? Have you actually ever tried it? Have you tried to push back on your boss and challenge her and there was a bad reaction? Have you seen her react in a negative way while other people challenged her? Or are you just making this assumption that it's really going to hurt? It's really going to be a bad situation. And then we tried to open it up and say, okay, well, what are you trying to achieve here? And is not having boundaries with your boss helping you? Is not, being able to focus on your own work rather than, prioritizing your own work and delegating and, creating some time constraints for others. Is that really helping you? And so basically what she decided was it was time to have a courageous conversation with her boss about a few different issues. On the next one, I need to keep working at this pace. Well, again, is that one really true? And when we looked at it more closely, it was like, no, nobody else is working this hard and the sky isn't falling. And again, is being burned out really helping me in what I'm trying to do? And so she decided that, okay, it's time to delegate more and to set more boundaries with my team and with my boss. And then giving critical feedback to my team isn't fair. Well, actually, it's your job to give them, constructive feedback. And in doing that, that's the only way they're going to grow. And the only way for you to get some more time to be able to focus on what you need to focus on. So she decided, yeah, now's the time to give feedback that is specific, honest, and sometimes constructive. Okay, so these were some of the assumptions that we explored, the process that we went through it, and then what happened. Okay, so Sally did have a conversation with her boss. And she specifically talked to her about letting the team circumvent her. And her boss, didn't actually realize she was doing that. They had a really good relationship, and the boss completely owned up to it. She was like, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Please point it out if I do it again. Now, it'll probably be challenging for Sally to point it out. She had to build herself up a lot for this conversation, but she did it, and nothing bad happened, right? She also told her boss that she wanted to be valued as a thinker and a creator and be more visible. And the boss actually got her into a more visible meeting. That happened immediately after they had that meeting. So that was pretty exciting. She did not yet address the time boundary. So that's still some work that Sally needs to do, but at least, she had her first, crucial conversation. With her team, she needed to get them, less reliant on her. So first of all, she shortened her one-on-one meetings from 1 hour to 45 minutes. And then she also moved the meetings to the afternoons because she had identified that her most productive time was in the mornings. And she really wanted to protect that time for deep thinking, project work, that type of thing. And so moving the meetings to the afternoon when it suited her made more sense. She also asked them to bring in agendas. So again, she delegated the agendas to them and held them responsible. And then she committed to delivering both constructive and positive feedback every time in her one-on-ones. So what can I say to this person that I liked about what they did specifically, and what could they improve on? And really, we talked about trying to make that just her process so that it's not like a big surprise at the end, but it's more of a cultural way that this department operates. And then for herself, she found, because she was giving that constructive feedback, she was able to delegate more to her team and have more confidence in them, which created more time for her and allowed her more clarity and focus on the projects that she values. And she's feeling like she has the tools to manage the relationship with her boss when issues arise. Now, a postscript to this story, and this happened, she started some awesome work with everyone involved. What ended up happening shortly after she had this courageous conversation is that her boss ended up leaving, and Sally ended up being promoted to her boss's role, which is great in that it gives her more visibility. There's something hard to work for. I mean, it's going to feed her gaining stature and her excelling. She's still going to have to worry about, she needs to be more comfortable with pushing back. She needs to not take so much on herself. She needs to get more comfortable delegating and delivering feedback. But that was kind of like an exciting thing that came about later on. Well, not that much later on, but after some of the work had begun. So the whole point of this is that resilience can be built. And the best way to break the cycle of reaction is to recognize when it's triggered. And you can only recognize when it's triggered when you have a lot of self-awareness. So when we help our clients to create their own self-awareness, it empowers them to understand themselves better, understand their reactions, and then to take charge of how they want to respond.